Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So during our live stream yesterday, we were playing a Jane Foster cycle deck, and it did pretty well, but another content creator came in, mentioned that they were playing a Destroyer deck, and we haven't tested Destroyer out in a very long time. So then there were a couple people that asked if we could run the Destroyer deck on our stream tomorrow. And so the list came from KrakenNull. I did build the list, and I wanted to test it out, and it's been working phenomenally. And so I did want to bring this video, but all credit goes to KrakenNull. He is the one that sent the deck list over. So running through the deck list really quickly, we have a couple of pretty good play paths. So Iceman is a cheap one-drop card. It's going to break up the opponent's curve. And so if they're playing a very curve-dependent deck, maybe we hit their Iron Man, maybe we hit something that's really high priority, that makes it hard for them to drop their cards optimally. For our second one-cost card, we have Nova. Nova, whenever this card is destroyed, give your cards +1 power. We have Bucky Barnes, so a destroy type card. Whenever this is destroyed, create the Winter Soldier in its place for 6 power. And then we have the new card Daredevil. So Daredevil is going to serve a really good purpose in this deck. A lot of times Destroyer decks run a Professor X. And so by being able to determine if your Professor X is going to win the lane or not, you can then lock it down. The cool thing about the Professor X interaction is once it goes off and Destroyer comes down, it does not destroy your Professor X cards because they are locked down in that lane. We have Armor. Armor is in the deck list as a way to protect your cards. In an armored lane, no matter what, even if you drop Destroyer, it is not going to destroy the cards in the armored lane. We have Colossus. Colossus has the flexibility to be played in any lane, and we don't have to worry about him being destroyed if we drop into the Destroyer at the end of the game. We have Green Goblin, so if we don't draw into any way to protect our cards, the best way for us to positively impact the board is to send the opponent negative cards. So Green Goblin is going to go over to their side. We're not going to have to worry about it being destroyed once we drop the Destroyer at the end of the game. We have Deathlock as a standard normal destruction engine. So Deathlock is going to be able to be used to destroy your Nova, destroy your Bucky Barnes, if you draw it in a way where maybe you don't have Destroyer, or maybe you just need to destroy those cards to have an upside, and then you can lock it down with Armor. Deathlock is going to come in and have a pretty high base power and be able to positively impact the rest of your board by destroying the cards you want destroyed. We have the newly buffed or reduced cost Rescue. So at 5 power, Rescue was really tough to use. It didn't feel like she could be curved into very well because it would telegraph your last turn. Well, at 4 power, you have some pretty powerful turn 5s, and she makes for a pretty good potential Professor X play. So you can drop Rescue in an empty lane even, follow that up with a Professor X on the next turn, and so Rescue will get buffed up by 5 when you drop the Professor X there. That is a 12 power lane in just those 2 cards. And so being able to drop a Professor X pretty easily there can be really beneficial. It can help you swing that lane in your favor. We have Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin is going to serve in a similar function as Green Goblin. We're going to drop it. It's going to send over onto the opponent's side of the board, and then we don't have to worry about it being destroyed when we drop our Destroyer on the following turn. And the Hobgoblin will come in pretty good if we have Daredevil, but we don't have Professor X for a turn 5 play. We can either buff up our Rescue by dropping Hobgoblin in that lane. We can drop Hobgoblin wherever we need to, and it's just a pretty solid alternative if we don't have Professor X. And then finally, we have the bread and butter of the deck list. We don't have the really cool variant, but this one will do. We have Destroyer, a 6 cost, 16 power card that on reveal destroy your other cards. This is going to be able to be dropped, and if the other cards are behind an Armor, if they are behind a Professor X, when we drop Destroyer, it'll minimize the negative impact that he has on the board. If the opponent decides to copy your final turn play with a leader, Destroyer can uproot and destroy their whole side of the board, and just some pretty cool interactions with Destroyer in this deck list. And so this is a much more optimized list than we ran when we first covered Destroyer. It feels like a month ago, and I'm really excited to jump in. From my testing, this has performed very, very well, and I'm excited to jump in and test it out further. All right, so first up we have Genome, and starting in our hand, we have Iceman, we have Armor, we have Daredevil, which is going to be great for us. I think we go ahead and just probably stack these 3 cards into Atlantis here, and then that'll give us some time to draw into new resources. We can figure out what the best play line from there is going to be. And so during our last live stream, we got a couple of new members to the channel, and I didn't have an alert set up to call it out on the live stream. We have one set up now, so moving forward, if you join us as a member, if you do a super thanks, if you subscribe, it's going to pop up with a cool alert on the live stream. That way we can call it out and appreciate. Hey puppy. That way we can call it out and appreciate you guys. And so the 3 members that joined the channel, one was Muhammad El Haddad, the next one was Matt Smith, and the last one was Bosk. And so thank you all so much for joining us and supporting the channel. As a channel member, you get access to cool emojis, a special badge next to your name that's visible during live streams. At certain levels, you get priority responses to comments. And at some of the highest levels, you get early access to most of my videos before they are released to the public. And so we're going to go ahead and drop our Colossus into mid because we know that we're going to be able to drop power there. Ooh, so it looks like they are probably running a Hela style deck. We do know that this one's locked down, this one's locked down, or this one's not locked down. Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate. We didn't think about that, unfortunately. So they drop a Lady Sif here, because if we drop a Destroyer now, it is going to destroy these cards still. It was an oversight, pretty big oversight actually. We could always do Rescue, and then last turn we can drop a Hobgoblin, which I mean is not great, but it gives us some different play options. It's better than just passing this turn or putting a 4-power Rescue here. Ooh, so they discarded their Hela. Let's go ahead and snap off of that. We didn't play this optimally at all, but we are going to go ahead and snap off of that. We are going to play our Hobgoblin here to send over. It would trigger our Rescue buff, and then they would have to come up over us in all 3 lanes to be able to come for the win. And without Hela, that's very, very difficult. So if you are playing against the Hela deck and you see them discard Hela, a pretty good chance that you can win that one. All right, so next up we have Asurio, and we get Death's Domain again. What are the chances here? And so we're going to go ahead and play Iceman into this last location because Clintar is going to be a negative location. Death's Domain, obviously we can't play it there just yet. So the last chance is playing it in this last location here. And then we do get Nova, and we also have Daredevil here. So we're going to be able to drop Nova into Death's Domain on one of the last turns if we want to push power into the other lanes and just have it automatically get destroyed, or we can drop it here if we're planning on dropping a Destroyer. We have a couple of options, and so we're going to go ahead and lock in Daredevil here. That way we can get an idea of what they're going to drop on turn 5. And so they come in with a Lockjaw, so they are going to be rotating cards. So maybe they're playing a Thor rotation deck similar to what we featured recently. I think we are going to go ahead and drop our armor here. I don't think we need to drop it into Death's Domain. Having Colossus there, even if we drop Destroyer, it's not going to kill our Colossus. So I think we're safe to at least just push the 3-power there. So even if we drop a Destroyer or draw into it, we are good to go. They are going to rotate cards. Ooh, it is a Wasp, so they are doing a rotation style deck. So Asurio, I wonder if this is the same build we had. We'll see how well it gets navigated. And so a Professor X would have been pretty good here to lock down this location, make sure that it's capped out, they can't rotate into any more cards, but we just don't have that. So they drop a... Oh, they draw back into Wasp on turn 5, and then they have a Jane Foster here. So we have initiative. I think we send them the large Hobgoblin. That's going to make sure that they can't rotate again. And then if they flip into Jubilee, it's not going to be able to pull a card out. Okay, the only issue is if they're running our deck list, they have an Odin. And so if they flip into Odin, then they will send Hobgoblin back to us, and then we will retreat. The other option is to drop it into Clintar, and then that gives them a -10, so they'll be -2, I believe. We can always drop Nova, which will buff up this one and this one. We can drop something like a Deathlock and a Nova. Maybe we do that. I think that's a little bit safer. I'm curious to see what they flip into with their Wasp, though. If it was an Odin, then we dodged a bullet. If it's something like a Jubilee, then we definitely did not. Guys, what? So they did flip into Jubilee. We could have avoided that whole mess, but we did not. So do we drop big nasty 16 power Destroyer here? Do we go with something just like a Deathlock, and then we can do our Nova? That way we win this lane, we probably win this one. I don't see a way that they can push power into Death's Domain here, so I think that is a given. If they're running the same version of the deck that we had, the only option would have been Jubilee, which would have pulled into a card here. I think this is going to be the safest. So this is what we're going to do. We could drop a big Destroyer, which would put 16 power here. We'd keep 3, but we'd lose this lane. At least this way we are winning all 3 lanes for the time being. and we're positively impacting both the left and right. And then depending on what they put into Clintar, I don't think they can win off of it, but we're going to go ahead and play it out anyways. And so we have the buff coming up from our Sunspot. No, they got Odin. So they had it in hand, so they couldn't have flipped into it. So Hobgoblin is going to come back our way. But since we pushed to win the left and the right lane, we're safe. Had we dropped the Destroyer there, we would have lost in Stark Tower. But had we dropped Destroyer into Stark Tower, we would have been fine. We would have been a little bit better off. But I think the safest play, the min-max, was going to be Deathlock. Because if they drop a card to swing one of these lanes, they're not going to be able to buff up their Sunspot. If they pass to let their Sunspot buff up and come up over us here, then they're not going to play a card here, and we win both of those. Alright, so next up we have Net Sky. And we start with Iceman again. We have Daredevil. We're getting a really good high roll here because now we're going to be able to play Daredevil again. Not on turn 2 though, because it got hit with an Iceman, but that's okay. We're going to be able to drop something like an armor and then a Daredevil to protect this lane or whatever lane we decide to. I think we go ahead and just drop it in Atlantis. We plan on dropping Daredevil on 3. That way we can curve into Rescue on 4, especially if we draw into our Professor X. This Decklist feels so solid. Just so much power output. That is ridiculous. So maybe we do Daredevil here. That way we can do Rescue on 4, potentially Professor X on 5. And then if not, then we have to draw into and place something else into this lane, and that would make it where we can't drop our Destroyer. Colossus is a good follow-up. So we're going to go ahead and do our Rescue into Mojo World. That's going to be the easiest lane to fully win. If we have the most cards there, we have a 100-point advantage in that lane. And so depending on what they drop, maybe turn 5, we drop something like our Hobgoblin into Central Park to give us the win there, to negatively impact their cards. And we have to remember they can move their Nightcrawler out, so they're going to be able to potentially push a lot more power than what it looks like right now into this left lane, that is. I didn't realize we got the puppy cam going back there, the sleepy puppy. And so they do move their Nightcrawler over, so we know that that is coming in. They drop Ant-Man, they drop Strong Guy, so they're running a Zoo-style deck. We can hit them with the Hobgoblin. That caps them out here. That's going to make this one fairly easy to swing. We could then drop all 3 of these next turn. We could do a Colossus, and then we could do a Nova and a Deathlock to have 6 power here and push our cap here. We let Atlantis go. I think that's going to be a pretty solid play line, a pretty solid path to win. I don't see us drawing into anything better. A Destroyer is not going to be perfect here. Professor X at this point is too late, and so I think this is our best play line, our best shot, knowing that they are now capped at 7 in this lane. So even if they get rid of all 3 of their cards, they're only going to have a max of 7 power here. So is it more beneficial for us to do that? Because they're 1 right now. Strong Guy will give them a +6 bonus. If we do a Nova and then Deathlock, that is only going to be 6 power. So it's not enough to win here. So maybe we do Bucky Barnes, we do Colossus. Ooh, we can't, can we? That feels pretty bad. Because if they come in with a Chavez, then they don't empty their hand. So we win this one by 100. This is going to let us win this lane. I think this is our only play line. Unless it was more beneficial. No, that would still only be 6. So we're going under the assumption that they have something like a Blade and another small card. But I don't think, because this is going to be a 9 power card, it's going to be close. They may outpower us in Mojo World depending on what they have here, but we have to drop it in this order so that we can come up over them and win in Central Park. And so if they only dropped Chavez, or maybe it's Hellcow, which would discard 2 of their cards, but either way, we win in Mojo World. That's Chavez. So we win by an extra card in Mojo World, which gives us a 100 power bonus. And then by knowing what their power level was going to be here, even if they had somehow discarded all of their cards or played all of their cards, we had Central Park locked down. It just came down to if we could outpower them here, but with a 3 and a 2 versus our... Oh, I didn't realize we dropped Rescue on 4, not 5, and so we missed the opportunity to get the +5 bonus. And so all we had was 9 power here. All they had to do was cap this one out, and they would have won. Maybe they didn't have enough power to do that. Potentially pretty big misplay, but luckily we were able to keep the upside and still come up over and win here. All right, so next up we have Hex. Our starting hand, we have Iceman again. I don't know what this luck is, but I will absolutely take it. We're gonna play Iceman into the far right lane again. It's our go-to now. I don't know when that became our go-to, but it has been in the last like 4 or 5 videos. We can always drop our Bucky Barnes and hit a Deathlock into sewer system. Otherwise, it's going to send them into random lanes. So we're gonna drop our Bucky Barnes first. Then we can decide if we want to drop a Invisible Woman. Depending on what they're hiding behind Invisible Woman, could determine how hard this game is going to be. So if it's a discard style deck, and we won't know until the very end, but hopefully if it's a Hela style deck or a discard style deck, then we can get the upside by either sending a Hobgoblin over to make sure they can't play too many cards, or maybe they're running a Kingpin. Maybe they're testing out that Kingpin destruction style build that we have. If so, dropping an armor here would be great. I think we'd go with a Rescue into Strange Academy this turn. We may follow that up with a Hobgoblin next turn, or a Professor X, which would stop the cards from being sent around. So they discard Magic. So they're not going to be able to extend the game, and we know that they are at least somewhat a discard style deck. I'm going to send the Hobgoblin into Strange Academy. We're going to hope that it sends it over here to block off their sewer system lane. We could drop it here, but I think getting the bonus from Rescue is going to be a little bit more potentially impactful. Actually, we plan on dropping Destroyer probably here. Okay, so change of plans. We're not going to go with the Hobgoblin. Instead, we're going to go with protecting our upside. We are going to, I don't really like that either, but we're going to drop armor into the sewer system. After this turn, we drop Nova. That's going to buff up our Rescue. We are hoping that Rescue gets sent over into sewer system and not into the Crimson Cosmos. And then we hope that Nova goes wherever Nova wants to go, as long as it's not sewer system. So the only other potential option would be in the Crimson Cosmos. But we have a pretty big power push in our Rescue here. So they've dropped some pretty big cards. We know that this one costs 3, so potentially a Gambit. Okay, so they do all go over here, which is not great for us. So if we drop Destroyer now, almost shooting ourselves in the foot in that right lane. So instead of that, since we don't have that strong Rescue protected, we were just going to drop the Hobgoblin. That way we'd push -8 power in Strange Academy. We have a chance to win that one. And I'm guessing they didn't draw into Hela, which is the biggest drawback of the Hela deck. But that is 4-0. We are going to go ahead and jump into the next one. All right, so next up we have Brew. And we start with Nova, and the first location is Mojo World, and so very on brand for us. We're going to play into the third lane. I like playing into the third lane or third location because we have another chance to put another card there if we need to, without much drawback. We're going to go ahead and play our Colossus into Mojo World. That's going to be pretty important that we have more cards than they do in Mojo World, and so turn 3, we're going to be able to potentially drop our Deathlock. If it looks like they're investing resources, we can then follow that up with a Rescue and a Professor X to get it completely locked down. And then we just have to win one other location. And so if we draw into our Destroyer, that could be pretty good unless Mindscape is a location. So we're going to go ahead and drop our Deathlock here. I don't see any downside with the cards that we have in doing that. We're going to be able to push for this one to be locked down. They are going to look at having a Destroyer, so they're probably running a version of a Death Wave style deck. Do we go for protecting another location or dropping into another location? I think we just go with into Mojo World. Maybe we can draw into Destroyer on the very last turn, just very luckily. We don't hit it before. But we do know that having Rescue in this lane is going to make it really, really easy for us to win this location, or it should. Even though we don't have Daredevil here, I feel pretty confident that we can drop our Professor X, and even if they flooded the lane, I think we would keep the upside. But we could also do something like an Iceman here to hit that follow-up. We could go with an armor, or we could go with a Green Goblin. This is going to give us the max upside here. We know that what we're giving them is not great for capping this lane out. If we can destroy the Nova with our Destroyer that we draw into on turn 6, because that's happening. We don't give them really great units. So I'm going to go with that. It's not the most optimal play line, and we are going to shoot ourselves a little bit with the resources that they are sending us. We're going to impact one of those with a +1 power cost, or +1 energy cost from Iceman. So they do extend the game with magic. Oh my gosh, they throw us for a loop. Well, I mean, it is what it is. Oh man. So we could try to sneak this one out. We could send a hobgoblin their way in this side, since we're already winning this one technically. But I don't know that we want to draw a rock. We have a 50% chance of drawing into the destroyer on the next turn, as long as they don't lock down a location. I think we're going to send hobgoblin their way, make this lane really hard for them to come up over. As long as they don't drop 2 resources there, they don't. Good. So maybe they drop a Professor X of their own here. No, they drop a death. Okay, and so they do have probably a Taskmaster that they're going to be able to drop in this next turn. I don't know. I don't know what 1-cost card they could have, but I do feel pretty confident. We can do a Destroyer here. That is going to buff up all of these cards by +1, so we're going to get +4 here, even if they cap out this location. We have the 16 power here, and they have -8 that they would have to come up over. So we're going to be ahead in all 3 lanes going into this last turn. So I think we have a pretty good shot no matter what they drop here. Even if it's like a Dr. Doom, if it's a Gambit, I feel pretty confident unless they hit very key cards. And then they're thinking it over. So they do go ahead and play if... Oh my gosh. We're so bad. We are so bad. We don't deserve this win. Calculated. That was, oh my gosh, that was awful. How long did you guys see that coming? How long did you guys see that train wreck happening? Oh my gosh. This is, you can tell we're not versed in Destroyer gameplay, but we're 5-0 right now. Even though we've misplayed like 3 of the 5 games, we've still had enough of a power push that we're 5-0, which is nuts. Oh my gosh. We didn't deserve the win. We definitely did not deserve the win. The Nova destruction is the only reason we won here. Otherwise, we would have lost. We would have tied this lane, won by 8, and then lost by 99. Oh my! We're gonna go ahead and do one more and see if we can do better. Like we deserve to do better. Next up, we have Simon. Next up we have Simon. So in our starting hand, we have nothing that we can play early. We're still shaken from our last game. Oh my gosh. We do have armor, so we're going to be able to protect this lane. This is the lane that we can't destroy cards in, guys. Very important. So they drop a domino, we drop our armor, so we're still on par with our power level. We're going to be able to do some cool things with like rescue or our green goblin. Oh, I love this. So Sinister London with goblins, early game, phenomenal. So we're going to send 2 green goblins their way. Next turn we can drop 2 rescues, and then we can potentially buff up both of them depending on where we play. Oh my gosh, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Ooh, and so then they morph into a rescue. Not great, definitely could have been better, but that's okay. So we do draw into... I don't necessarily like the... So it would be a destroyer here. It would duplicate and become another destroyer somewhere else, which I don't necessarily like. Do we want to drop our rescue here? Or do we want to do something different? We can do Deathlock and Iceman to impact 2 of their cards with +1 cost, making it hard for them to play onto curve. We could do 2 rescues, follow that up at least with 1 with an Iceman so that we have +9. We'll go ahead and go with that because we ran out of time. We were thinking too long. But they do play a card into the Strange Academy to buff up their rescue, which it hasn't flipped yet. And it's a Mr. Negative. Ooh, interesting. So they're going to have some pretty good cards to potentially play here. Do we want to, in that case, I don't think they're going to flood the board. Do we want to take the risk if they cap this location out? Pretty bad. But we can push a Hobgoblin here, make it a really hard lane to win. It's going to duplicate somewhere. I think we take the risk. I like it. It buffs up this rescue. We know that this one is going to be pretty solid, pretty easy initiation with our Hobgoblin. And then if we hit it into the armored lane, it's kind of unfortunate. But actually, no, we turn first. So even if it goes there, it's going to cap out their Monster Island. We win that location. We're not going to be able to play into Sinister London next turn. But I mean, do we need to? Actually, we're not going to be able to play in either location next turn. But the locations are fully capped out here. We do know that we've won Sinister London, we know that we've won Monster Island. I mean, the only choice here would be to snap, because with our Hobgoblin filling up 2 more of their spots, it capped out their board, and I don't think they intended for their board to be fully capped out. But we are going to go ahead and end the video here. That is 6-0